everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon. If you enjoy the videos here, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the Word Balloon YouTube channel, and of course, if you enjoy the audios and the videos, you can subscribe to my Patreon page, patreon.com/wordballoon. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome Geoff Johns back for another Stargirl recap. Today we're talking about episode 3, Icicle. The story just gets more and more interesting, and it's great to talk to Geoff and go in-depth behind the scenes and hear all the stories and thoughts as he's created these characters for television, looking at the legacy of the Justice Society and the Injustice Society of America, all in episode 3, Stargirl's Icicle. Today, a conversation with Geoff Johns on Word Balloon. All right, Geoff, moving on. We're discussing today Stargirl episode 3, Icicle. And
yes.
Man,
Icicle.
I thought Brainwave was menacing. Oh, you know, and I want to acknowledge something that I didn't say in the previous episode. Maybe I'll edit this back in, and it'll be in both of these moments. But certainly, Brainwave ends up in a coma at the end of the episode 2.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and that'll be something that we follow for a while, and what that means, and how that affects the rest of the ISA, and and clearly, by the end of episode 2, they're alarmed, right? They're alarmed that there's somebody with Starman's staff that has apparently found them, so they think, and targeting them, and that leads right into episode 3,
which is where we are right now. Episode 3, Icicle. Obviously, the events of what happened make him decide to come back to town, and take his real, assert himself again as the leader.
He goes on these trips that we get into more. He goes on these trips, and he'll, he usually hands off to the wizard, William Zarek. He's like, okay, keep the reins while I'm gone. And you see in this episode that William Zarek he's got a son and a wife, and he's pretty content with what his life's turned into, and he clearly loves his boy, and he's still got an ego that he feeds as a councilman. Jordan Icicle calls him out on that as well. Like, you're a performer. He just likes the attention. He likes the accolades, and that's who he is. But there's kind of a power struggle and a question mark of, like, look, how dedicated is Jordan really if he's going on these trips, and how dedicated does the rest of the ISA have to be, and how long have they been here, and what are they working on, what are they waiting for? And in episode 3, that kind of comes to a head, obviously, and there's, we ended with the episode, there's some pretty big twists and turns. This should definitely be listened to after the episode, because we're going to spoil some stuff. But, Courtney's got that exuberance and that let's go, and like, we took down Brainwave, we can take down Icicle, go right to the top. Excellent. Like, why not go right to the top, Pat? Like, she's so ready to go do it, and Pat knows that they're being led into a trap. It's clear, but she's so ready to go do it, and so confident that they can do it. And it's not as easy as she thinks, and they suffer a terrible loss when this kid is killed in the process. Like, it's a massive deal, obviously, and a huge tragedy that forces Pat to say, no, we're done. Like, we're done. And in Courtney's way, Pat's like, he died, so we can't do it. And Courtney's like, he died, so we have to. Like, how can we quit? We can't quit now. Now we really have to do this. And there's that constant push and pull. And by the end of the episode, there's that wonderful scene between Breck and Luke in the JSA headquarters. I really love that scene. It's a beautiful location, and they did a great job with all the, banners and artifacts and the tables.
Yes.
Like, for a JSA fan like myself and you and everybody else who loves JSA, I think they'll really enjoy that. But by the end of the episode, we see clearly Courtney comes back in there and it's like, if Pat's not going to be my sidekick, I'm going to find other people to help me. And that's really what kicks off the rest. Like, if the show is, a 3-act structure, all 13 episodes, act 1 is, episodes 1, 2, and 3. And then, episode 3 ends with her grabbing all that stuff and and she's off and running. She's ready to form a new JSA, and who knows what. And with her attitude and her tenaciousness, she's going to do it. But Pat doesn't know anything about it, and it's not going to be as easy as I think she might hope, which is usually the case.
I want to talk about the Wizard and his son and the Wizard's wife as well, because as you say, yes, William is in charge, or at least running things for the American Dream, and as the councilman, shaping the culture of Blue Valley in his role. As you say, he's kind of content in his life, and that poor kid. Good Lord.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, loves his father, wants to emulate his father. Dad knows that he's not quite, going to, can't pass the torch along. And it's interesting, too, going back to Brainwave and Henry Jr. and stuff, same thing where, hey, you've got to take over. And in the case of William and William's son, he loves this. Both of them, they adore their son. Their son's awkward and, kind of nerdy and goofy with his magic and stuff.
Yeah, I
but
think,
a sweet kid.
Yeah, there's a big difference between, and that's what makes the villains so interesting to me. The fact that they have families now, that certainly made them interesting to us. Like the fact that Wizard has a son that clearly he teaches tricks to, and they have a relationship that seems healthy and nice. Whereas you have Henry, Dr. King, and his son, Brainwave, and his son Junior, who there's definitely animosity and stress and who knows what else, but it is not a healthy relationship. It is not a warm, loving father-son relationship like William's Eric and his son. And then you see Icicle, who has, you learn in 3, Icicle is all about family. That opening scene,
yes,
he's motivated by his wife, and the fact that he lost his wife, and his wife's dying words are destroy anybody who gets in your way. That's what he lives by now. He's like, okay. And the dying words of this woman are destroy anyone who gets in your way. And the whole family is on board. His parents are on board. Clearly when he takes out the Wizard and his parents show up, he's like, well, you're busy. We'll take care of this. That's
amazing, by the way, that entire family dynamic. And you're right, starting with the death of Icicle's wife, which is this classic kind of sad deathbed sort of thing. And then it takes that suddenly uncomfortable turn of destroy.
Yeah.
Not take care of her son.
What do you do with that? And for a guy who is already living as essentially a criminal, a killer, and now he's trying to do something to protect his family, protect his son, his legacy. And we'll learn more about that as we go. But I really, Neil did a great job playing Jordan and Icicle, and especially in this episode. He's a really talented actor, but Icicle is a complicated character. They're all complicated. They all have their reasons. They all have their opinions and perspectives and relationships with their family and each other that we continue to explore. But the hope is always to subvert, expectations.
Well, and truly the depth of Icicle as well, because hardcore comic book fans know, he's always been in charge of the ISA, the Injustice Gang, as they say in the comics and stuff. But I love this idea too, that clearly he created the American Dream as kind of a promise to his wife. So we don't know the full motivations of the American Dream yet, but clearly something's going on, and it ties to these losses from Icicle.
Yeah. Yeah, it all ties back to Icicle.
That's awesome. And again, the subtle menace, much like with Brainwave in the first 2 episodes. I love how, as Courtney's walking in the park and stuff, and all of a sudden it gets cold, and then she realizes that the frost is under there, and that Icicle very subtly makes the star emblem and stuff. And there's a great warning. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that scene's really nice. Really cool shot too when it comes up and you see the star. But yeah, it's so much fun to explore these characters in this way and the history of these characters in this way. When we get into Icicle or the Wizard, we didn't even think we were going to use the Wizard. We were going through the ISA members.
Really?
No, originally in the writer's room, the pilot was written and the first 2 were written, and we went through the ISA and we're like, okay, it's going to be these characters and these characters. And some of the characters, I'm like, I never really got into the Wizard. I don't think I've ever written him in comics. If I have, it's been a line here or there. And some of them, like the Wizard and the Gambler, as we were talking more and more, they just became characters. They became like, oh wow, I found him really compelling, like somebody who is a villain who has a family, who's got a change of heart, who now is struggling with whether or not they need to continue to be a bad guy and what is their priority now. And he has an ego he needs to feed, but maybe he can feed it enough by just being like a important person in this town, like with power in this town, like, and a relationship with his son and his wife. And it's interesting evolution for a character like the Wizard, who's been a criminal. And then on the other end, we had the Gambler, who turned into a really fun character. A lot of it was just us riffing, like Luke and I were riffing one day on set, and Gambler started to form. But some of these characters, it wasn't until we got into the writers' rooms that we were like, there's real potential in using the Wizard and using the Gambler and using some of these other characters. It was really those two that I then went back and added them into episodes 1 and 2 before we shot, because suddenly we had great stories for them.
So I'm assuming, much like my not recognizing the Sportsmaster when you told me he was Crusher in our previous conversation, am I right? The Gambler is the city planner that seems to be in charge of the American.
I don't want to spoil everything, but you guys will see as you watch.
You're awesome, man. That's all right. That's great. And also, now there's a cloaked character. Am I right? That speaks to Icicle in episode 3 in their kind of headquarters. Doesn't that? Yeah, that happens in 3. Or it happens in 2.
In 2 at the end he speaks to the Gambler. So it's already spoiled. I guess it already is spoiled. Yeah.
Okay, so the cloaked character was.
That's episode 4, John. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm bouncing.
It's okay.
All over the place.
That happens. We'll just edit that part out.
All right.
No worries at all.
So Gambler is kind of the southern guy that is kind of like initially when Barbara goes for her meeting at with the American.
Yeah, that's Gambler. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, 3. He's great.
He's awesome. Eric Goins.
Who's that actor?
His name's Eric Goins, and he's both funny, scary, and like when you see what he does in the series, he's an amazing actor. He's from Atlanta, and Eric is super passionate, super nice, and really grabbed this character and did an amazing job. But I love him in episode 3. He's in episode 2. I love him when he's with Barbara and he's like puts her in a comfortable position. And in episode 3, you see a little bit more of him. But we'll get more into him too as we go. But Eric, we were so fortunate with all the actors. They're all talented. They all bring their own thing, and they are all so great to work with. So kind, so nice, so fun. It was really a special group of people.
And then too, Icicle really kind of forms this respect for Barbara, or at least or whatever. I mean, seems to appreciate her ideas.
Yeah,
and so that's obviously a great dichotomy of the hero's mom, connecting with the villain. Not knowing.
He recognizes in her, intelligence and passion in that scene. And I like that he does. Like, there's something, I think,
Me too.
I think Amy Smart's so fantastic. Barbara is somebody who, she's not a hero or a villain. She doesn't have a costume, but she's a very important character. And I think she's been overlooked most of her life, and she's worked really hard to take care of her daughter, and worked more than one job and struggled. We see that in the pilot. She's working on Christmas Eve to just make some more money, like, because she needs it.
Yeah,
and she doesn't have support for Courtney, and never got it from Courtney's dad.
Right,
and ultimately, she's finding like she's getting some success at this new job, some work at this new job, some attention at this new job that's really good for her. And she's trying so hard, and she's good at it. She's good at what she does, and she's really capable. So it's nice that he recognizes that in her in episode 3. He sees that this employee is very valuable. This person is really smart and really on it and cares. You can see she cares, and she cares about the right things, more importantly.
And also, again, it makes these people more three-dimensional, and especially Icicle, because it humanizes him. And yet he is still this menace, but at least in these scenes, whether it's put on or not, he seemingly, again, it's what I liked always about Smallville, and that Lex was always trying to be, in his mind, a good guy. and
Yeah,
trying. I mean, he was misguided in the way he did it, but he was earnest, and at least that is the appearance of these conversations between Icicle and Barbara.
yeah. I think Icicle different. I think he's probably more ruthless than obviously in 3. He's more ruthless and will go to
Well, yeah,
extremely dark places than Lex in Smallville would. Uh, he's he's much more dangerous because first he can kind of almost like, I mean, it's literally almost becoming cold. He can kind of emotionally turn himself off and do what he thinks he needs to do, no matter how awful it is. And clearly, killing someone like Joey Zarek, or
yeah,
most importantly Joey Zarek,
yeah,
he'll do it if he thinks it's going to help him accomplish what he needs to do.
yeah.
And in this case, it's like, okay, he's going to show them that this is who you're messing with, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, and absolutely. Kind of the cruelest message he could send to the wizard is killing his kid.
completely,
And
yeah,
absolutely. And again, it shatters the wizard, it shatters Denise, his wife, and
yeah,
Denise is another much like Barbara, interesting
really
character.
interesting character.
This is again, Jeff, this is what I love about good comic books and good comic book adaptations, whether it's television or film, where the civilians matter.
Yeah,
And they don't need to put on a costume to have an important part of the story. I always, Foggy Nelson in Daredevil never needed
yeah,
to
I
put
love
on a
Foggy.
costume. Yeah. I mean, and that's, the best characters, as you know, because we've discussed it, as far as Flash and Batman go, it's not only their rogues, but also the civilians, or
Oh,
Clark Kent of the
completely.
Daily Planet.
Yeah,
These very defined civilians
yeah,
kind of resonate back to the hero, and you see their attitudes projected back to the hero, and why their relationships are important to the hero as civilians.
yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, obviously Courtney's mother is going to be super important to her and is important to the story. Barbara is, and Pat's son Mike will play I mean, he plays a pretty big role too as we get more into this, this world, and we crack more into him. Like I think the civilian characters they're as important because they're just characters. They're all characters. They're all civilian
Yeah,
characters,
yeah,
and we're not a costume first show. Like, we don't even have, I mean, in the pilot, she didn't even have her costume. It's not about her in the costume. It's about this family and these people and this town and these friends, and the superhero stuff is 100% important, and it's there, but it's not costume first necessarily. And that helps when we're writing the scripts and working on the characters, that every character has a story, every character is important, and these costumes are fun and cool, and it does define who they are. And this is a superhero show. You want to have it and celebrate it, but it is about more than that.
Well, and Mike, we haven't really talked about Mike in our previous conversations. Great character, funny as
So
hell.
funny, yeah. Trey Romano is so funny. He's like this 45-year-old man in a 14-year-old kid's body. He's so hilarious. He and Luke would just goof around on set all the time and come up with bits. They'd like have a scene, they go off and like they go somewhere and they come back with all this fun dialogue. I'm like, go for it. They were really fun to work with. And Mike was he's a cool character. As I'm excited for people to see him throughout the show, just to see where that character goes. But he's super funny in episode 3 when he's busted for playing video games in school, and Pat's making him get a paper route, which we'll see. Like, it's funny. He's a funny character.
I'm assuming exactly that maybe his role as a paperboy is going to, play down the road. I didn't see anything as far as what you've shown me so far, but man, he's great. Now, how much younger is Mike than Courtney? Is he a year younger? Is he 2 years younger?
Well, we play him as he's like
Middle
we play
school?
him as a year younger. He's like 14.
Okay, so maybe he's a freshman at Blue Valley as well.
He's not in
Eighth
Blue
grade.
Valley High yet. He's
Yeah, like an eighth
he's
grade.
in middle school. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's in middle.
okay.
We'll
I
see
wasn't
him.
sure.
Yeah, we'll actually see him at the middle school episode.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And also back to Icicle's kid, who we see in the opening as this like artist and stuff, and
Cameron.
very, man, I'll tell you, I lost my. I mean, I know you have your connection with Courtney because of your sister, and anytime I see a kid lose their mom, I was young when I lost my mom, And any of those scenes, oh, that's it's okay. It was a lot. We move on, and certainly we love our family and everything, and they stay within us. But like those scenes really were great, and it really does kind of establish that this kid is an artist, and the mom really appreciates it, and very tender mother son stuff. And then that gets explored more. And am I right? This is where Yolanda is kind of initially, kind of has the slut thing on her locker. And I believe it's in this one where he draws the flower over the slut thing.
Yeah, it is. And I think Cameron having that connection to his mom by being an artist and having that talent and wanting to follow in her footsteps. And being an artist is such a great, expressive, caring, thoughtful, emotional thing. I always love and admire artists. I wanted to draw comics when I was growing up myself, and I do a ton of old comics, but I always admired like artists who are 100% dedicated to being an artist, and still do. But there's something special about him carrying on the legacy of his mother in that way, and in keeping that alive, and it helps him. And he's a considerate person.
Well, that's
help Yolanda, and he's doesn't need to, but he does.
And the contrast of his relationship with his father versus Henry Jr. and Brainwave and everything, because this is I mean, again, it's this nice gesture that he does that he didn't have to do. So clearly he is a compassionate kid, and I look forward to seeing if there's going to be conflict in his own as the season progresses and stuff. Is this a good kid or is this a bad kid? We don't know right now. Right now he's doing nice things, and he's a good kid.
Don't know yet. So far, pretty good.
Yeah. I'll ask a question. Or go ahead if you had a thought, please.
Oh no, it's a quick detour. We teleported into another room.
That's quite all right. Absolutely, man. No, and again, this is great detail about episode 3. I was going to say regarding Courtney's initial thoughts, and we talked a bit about it as far as taking on Icicle after Icicle kills Joey, the wizard's son.
Yeah.
Suddenly the stakes are different, and obviously Pat knows how bad things can get, but it clearly affects Courtney as well. And she even says, God, this is like the first kid that was actually really nice to me at school.
Yeah. I mean, it's devastating. I mean, to lose somebody is devastating. To lose a child is so much more devastating, I think, obviously. But it's hard for her, hard for everyone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And again, kind of a ripple effect that will obviously inform subsequent episodes. I mean, it does. It shatters William. William realizes that the cocoon that he has built in Blue Valley is now not, now is going to be disrupted by Icicle. So now he has to take on Icicle, and obviously knows who was responsible for his son's death. Yeah. Denise is shattered. It's it's cool. And also, again, always great to see, villain against villain and really kind of test their powers and stuff. So that now we really do see the wizard, at whatever level of strength fighting Icicle. That was pretty intense. And it could have been a moment where if things would play out differently.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, it was very, the character, again, Icicle is so, self-righteous and driven and willing to do anything he has to. That's the thing that's probably most frightening about him, is that he'll do whatever he has to do. There's no line he won't cross. None. Friends, kids, nothing. He will do. He doesn't want to necessarily do it. He's not like someone who enjoys doing this, killing a child. It's not, but he'll do it if he thinks he has to do it. That's a frightening individual.
Absolutely, man. Well, and again, he's an Iceman. I mean, he is literally an Iceman that can go there if he needs to.
Yeah.
but
the ending of 3 obviously sets us in a totally different direction. With Courtney, coming into the Chase HQ, grabbing all that stuff.
Who designed those images? Are those photographs, or because they remind me of your JSA run when Alex Russ was doing all those great iconic
Yeah.
covers of all the JSA members and stuff.
Yeah, the Flash one, I do know, like, it was our art department. One of the artists we had is a guy named Sean who is amazing, and he knows and loves the lore, so he get really into it. But we had obviously the Jay Garrick. They're all pictures, all photographs that were then taken and taken and like enhanced. But the Jay Garrick one was definitely inspired. They're all definitely inspired by like Alex's covers, and the Jay Garrick one in particular is like the same pose. And then some of them were based off other covers, but it was fun. It was really fun to see all of them and to see and meet the owl. Like Hootie is a big, important character to us in the lore. And I love this. I just love that Hootie has been waiting for Charles McNider to come back. That there's this story. You might have seen it. They even made a movie into it about a dog who would go and wait at a train station for his owner to, and obviously best friend to come back from work. And one day they had a heart attack at work and never came back. And the dog waited at the train station for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Just waited there. And then ultimately he died and they made a statue of him. And it's an amazing story. And I just was like the loyalty. Yeah. The loyalty that dog had to his owner. And I feel like Hootie is the same way. Hootie doesn't quite realize that Dr. Midnight's gone and he's just going to wait. And it's a little sad. You even see the owl. It's a little sad.
No, I understand. It reminds me of that wonderful bittersweet Futurama episode where Fry's dog waits for him in front of the pizza place. And again, you'll forgive me, but when my father passed away, our dog, he would always come through the garage to the laundry room in the basement. And anytime the garage door would open, the dog would run thinking it was my father years after he had passed away. Yeah, man. And again, this is the intuitiveness of animals. It's incredible. And that was a great moment seeing Hootie there.
I love animals. I love dogs in particular. I've had a lot of dogs and yeah, Hootie was just we're really fortunate to get that moment in, to find an owl like that. And it is, but it's emotional. Like that's why we do it. It's like, let's make Hootie into a real character. If we're going to use Hootie, let's actually give the character some emotional resonance. And Colleen McGinnis, who wrote the script to 3, she's so talented. She did work on 30 Rock and a bunch of other great shows. She's an amazing writer, but she wrote all these great emotional scenes in this episode. Really, really heartfelt scenes. And we always tried to lead with our heart when we were writing these scripts. But that bit about the owl in particular always, among I think a show that has a lot of emotional scenes in it, that one also stands out.
Well, and seeing the JSA headquarters,
was
memories of, oh my God, and really just the room, the table, that lovely iconic table that goes back to All-Star issue 4 back in the 40s.
All-Star 3.
Oh, you see, attaboy.
Come on, John.
The runner stumbles. What can I say? But
it was that would have been such a cool issue to have. The cover is so amazing. But one of my favorite moments though is just when she grabs the pen, like that pink pen.
Yes,
it's so exciting to actually have that pink pen exist in live action. That's just to me as a fan. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe we have a pink pen with a Thunderbolt inside.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, we get those little hints that obviously the Thunderbolt's in there. And also, and that's what I was going to expand and just say, I'm referring to them as JSA totems because I don't know how artifacts or what do you
artifacts, tools. They're not weapons. We don't like to call them weapons because they're not weapons necessarily, but they're artifacts. And and we'll see, there's a lot of them to explore, which is cool. We have our initial ones that we're going to explore, but there's so many to explore, so many legacies to explore.
It's exciting. And again, you think back to not only that great 2-hour Smallville that you did for the Justice Society back then, but also Kingdom Come and those great scenes in like Planet Krypton, the Planet Hollywood cyber where all the cases.
Yeah, and like I said, like there's everything. There's nothing that's just an Easter egg. That's like, oh, cool, look at this. Everything has a story that we've talked about. Everything we really want to explore all this stuff and make it feel real and emotional and fun and we're all really excited about it. We're so excited that the reception of the first episode was so great and people tuned in and on DCU and CW and I'm really excited for everyone to see where we go with all this stuff because it's a lot
Absolutely.
of fun.
Before we wrap up on episode 3, just in general, you were kind enough to send me the first few episodes, and we're able to kind of pre-record right now and talk about these things after they air. I guarantee you, just for your own assurances, this stuff will only air until after the episode airs. But how much is there? How many minutes difference is there between the CW presentation and the streaming?
That's easy to answer. For episodes 1 and 2, it was designed as a 2-hour pilot. It was always going to be 2 episodes, but like, hey, it's like a movie, a Stargirl movie.
So did streaming get? Oh no, but they still were episodic, so it's still in 2 parts.
Episodic. Yeah, it was never going to be shown as 2 parts, but it was designed like I wrote it in mind as this is part 1 and part 2 of a 2-hour Stargirl movie. Like this is the story. Like I couldn't just cram everything into 1 episode. It didn't feel right the way we pace our shows. A little slower than some of the broadcast ones. But the first 2 episodes were about 50 plus minutes, 52 minutes each. We had to cut about 10 minutes from episodes 1 and 2 from the DC service to CW.
Sure.
For commercials. After that, our episodes were already coming in around 40 some, so we were right on time anyway. So episodes 3 through 13, I think episode maybe 4, 5 and 11. I think like there's a few that have like maybe a minute or 45. They have one small scene that we put in, but other than that, the rest of the season's identical. Beyond one, like really beyond 1 and 2, they're identical.
Okay. Yeah, and again, I mean, I understand commercial television and stuff. God, I used to watch MI5, the British spy show, and the American version that was airing on A&E, they had to cut, like they'd have an A, B, and C plot, and they basically would have to cut the C plot to fit into American commercial television. So that's great to hear that.
Yeah, 1 and 2, we did some cuts. We focused on Courtney and Pat. And everything that we lost, like if you're just watching CW, you'll catch up because it's all in there. But I was happy because once we get to episode 3, they're virtually the same show.
Okay, and then back to the JSA of artifacts, as we said at the beginning of this conversation. Courtney collects them all, and now she's on her mission.
Off and running.
She's not fazed by Joey's death. If anything, it galvanized her spirit to move forward. And as you say, no, we've got to do this. And really, man, again, this dynamic between Pat and Courtney, and it really, I think her whole subtext is, I need you. Not I need you, Dad, necessarily, but I need you.
I need you
and get in the game, pal.
Yeah.
And it's great because Pat's whole thing is, it's a new family, and he really wants, the 4 of them to feel like a family, and even family dinner that earlier in the episode, obviously, because Barbara's working and Courtney's doing her thing, and it's what happened to this planned family dinner, Dad? And he's like, I don't know. What are you gonna do?
It's another story. Is like Barbara, like she's committed to this family as much as Pat is, and then this it doesn't go as planned for anybody in episode 3.
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. Yeah.
No, great stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, John. Thanks so much for talking about episode 3.
Absolutely, man. And again, now the mission, and she collects the artifacts. I love, too, real fast, that the artifacts seem to have, like in the case of the pink pen, there's more there than just the fact that they are items. And that there is, kind of this.
There's still life in everything, It's not, this isn't just a museum. This shouldn't be a museum.
Excellent, man. No, very, very cool. And we'll move on and talk more about episode 4 next time. So great conversation about episode 3, Geoff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for watching another Word Balloon video. We've got plenty more at our channel, Word Balloon. If you enjoyed it, please like it and consider subscribing to the channel. And of course, support me on Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thanks a lot for watching.